All right, so Michael and I, we're gonna talk about the basics of drywall, counting drywall. We're not gonna go into the taping or the finishing of it. Mainly, this is just for people that want to tackle the first time they've ever done any kind of delivery of material, any kind of ordering of material, how to look at the job. So really quick, I've been in the construction industries for over 30 years. Michael's got close to 15 years in the construction industry. So you could definitely say that we're both professionals at it. Not that we're good at it, but we're professionals.
Hey, now.
So the first thing we want to do is we want to talk about measuring the drywall.
Yep.
So now, a couple of things. I have another video. I'll put that link in the description on that. But the things that you really want to look for when you're measuring drywall, the most important thing is your ceiling heights. So like this wall right here behind us, it lands right at 8 feet. So we can order normal 48-inch wide sheets of sheetrock. As a taper, I really like taping the bigger sheets. In the Pacific Northwest, where we're out of, we can get 8 foot as standard and 12 foot is the other standard. If you go to a lot of the specialty stores, you can get 9 foot, 10s, but 12s in our area is about as big as
16s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but in our area,
yeah,
we haven't seen any of that. I would love to see some 14s and some 16s, but we just don't. It's just not something that the guys stock for us. Right. We should really look into that, just to see.
Nobody wants to hang that.
Everybody wants to tape it though. And no butt joints in the entire house.
I don't know. I guess if you have a big enough house to swing them through, then that's fine. But in a house like this, I wouldn't want to swing 16 footers through here.
Well, this is a tiny little house, so that makes sense. So first thing you want to do is make sure your ceiling height is accurate. And if you have like an 8'1", which is going to be standard from raw floor to the bottom of your trusses or rafters, if 8'1", then your ceiling's going to be ½ inch. Some places you'll have to do 5/8, but most of us in the Pacific Northwest, the ceiling is ½ inch, and that will leave you about a ½ inch gap between the bottom of your lower sheet and your floor. If anything over about an inch, you want to check with the builder, or if you're the one that's doing the trim carpentry, is your trim going to be big enough to cover that 1 inch gap and also the recess of that bottom sheet?
Right. Yeah, without rocking.
Without rocking the trim. Because it sucks to have to get on your hands and knees and fill in that recess, and it's horrible. If you're using like a 6-inch square stock, then you can get away with a pretty good sized gap back there. Also, if you have a wall that's 8'6", then you can order one sheet of 54-inch board. That board's going to be 12 feet long, and it's going to be 4'6" wide. That's the widest board that we can get in our area. I know that there's some specialty stuff out there you can get bigger, but it's not common. And then you can do one sheet of 4.5 and one sheet of 4, and that will get you your 8'6". If you get 9 foot, then you can order 4.5 and 4.5 and get your 9. If you're going to be doing 12 foot ceilings, then you can just order 3 4-footers and stack them up. If your framing is really spot on, like steel stud framing, like what Michael does a lot of, you can do some stand-up boards. So if you have a 9-foot ceiling, you can order a 9-foot board. With residential construction, it's so wavy and it's so crowny that you just can't do your stand-up very well at all. Yeah. It's a real pain in the butt.
I've done wood framed jobs where we stand it up, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt. Yeah. And it's hard. The seams end up getting all off cambered, so when you're taping it, you end up having a 9-foot butt joint to hide the transition.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, short walls like the ends of here, you can stand those up, no problem.
Different story because they're not.
But it's easier just to use your cutoffs.
Yeah, that's
and not have the extra sheets.
So what Michael was saying is like right here, if you had a piece of sheetrock that was 8 feet long and this wide, you can just put one sheet up here. But you wouldn't want to do that on a bigger wall where you have to butt them together unless your framing is really spot on. Yeah. But like also what Michael said, that's a great place to put when you have a 12-foot sheet and you cut it down to 9. Then this is a perfect place for your 3-footer. So you always save those little cutoffs, and you do these walls last, because that way you can use all of your cutoff for that.
Or plan ahead and know you're going to use something there.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I do my sheetrock counting, when I do my takeoff, I just pretend the windows aren't there. I just count the walls right through the windows, right through the doors. There's a lot of guys that will pull out their tape measures or their lasers and they will measure every wall. I don't do that. I look at the stud placement and I count my 12-foot sheets. And you kind of get a feel for it if you've done it for a while, but if you're really new to this, then don't assume that a wall is not 12'2". Don't assume anything is.
You gotta watch for that because 12'2" will bite you.
Yeah, because now you're having a butt joint right in the middle somewhere and a lot of cutoff. So if you're new to this, then you do want to measure all your walls and then draw a little diagram and try to figure out where all your sheetrock's going to go.
Right.
Another thing to keep in mind is, are you going to wrap your windows and your closet openings and any pass-throughs, not doorways, but pass-throughs, are you going to wrap those in drywall and corner bead? Those will take maybe not necessarily a lot more drywall, but if you're doing like a basement where your window well is 14 inches deep, well, you can have 2 or 3 extra sheets needed. Other than that, we just use a lot of our scrap.
Yeah, a lot of times when you hang through a window, you cut the window out, that can be used for your window wrap.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So that cutoff just gets used right there, but still adds a lot of time, a lot of extra work for the taper.
Yeah. If you can spend an extra $10 on drywall to avoid a whole seam, oftentimes you'll save $30 or $40 on the drywall finisher. Don't be afraid of scrap. Throw it away. Don't try to use every small piece. It's not worth it. When you go to finish it, it takes away the integrity of the drywall and the walls if you add too many seams, too many small pieces. Here, let me grab this camera real quick. So this is the scrap from this job. It's a pretty good pile. There's some, it's all in one spot so we can throw it out this door when we're done. But this pile, it's probably 500 pounds in drywall. So by the time, if you were to put all this out there, it's probably 5 full sheets. But it does us no good to try and reuse that stuff in areas of the house that need really full sheets. So don't be stingy on your drywall scrap.
A lot of that pile is just small pieces that we couldn't use up, or the door and window cutouts.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of that is. If you piece too much together and then have a taper come in and tape it after you've hung it, you're gonna get charged a lot more than that sheetrock would have ever cost you.
So again, don't be afraid to throw away your scrap. Don't try to use it. Yeah, it's definitely cheaper than labor. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it all for free and you're trying to convince yourself to use all the small pieces, just know that you're going to have a less durable product if you're using all the scrap, and that's all you're using is trying to use up every piece of scrap.
Yep. One thing we also didn't write down is ending sheets on a stud.
Oh, yeah.
Not letting them run.
That's good. Yeah. Really make sure that you're just landing all your seams on studs. Don't let them run wild in between trusses, or in between studs or trusses, I guess. If you cut your sheet wrong and you're too close to the edge of that stud, you only have 1.5 inches. You're trying to really get that thing landed right on the middle. If you only have 1/2 inch or even say 3/8 of an inch left, what we've done is add a piece of blocking, a piece of 2x4 or 1x4 right next to that stud. That's what you were going to say, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I always go the route of adding blocking. It's definitely the strongest way to make sure that
as long as your blocking is securely attached to the stud.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so make sure if you're bidding a job that has window wraps and door wraps, closet wraps, make sure you're adding, like $100 per window or per door. Your $100 to do the drywall on the window is going to be significantly cheaper than the customer hiring to do wood on the doors. Yeah. So you need to make more money. We as a trade.
One window wrap is easily 2 hours.
Yeah. By the time you're done hanging it and masking it and texturing it and priming it, it's easy 2 hours for one. The track houses are you know, the drywallers do it way too cheap on those. We need to start.
We're
There's
still
way more
cheaper
work.
than finished carpenters.
Oh, way cheaper.
Well, and that's, I mean, the wood and the time that takes is way more than the 2 hours for drywall. I mean,
but like this house, we were almost scared to turn this camera around and show you. All right, here we go. So we have up here about a 1/4 inch gap. It gets tight right here, got broken out, and then the ceiling starts to go up. And then, so we had a big gap with our big 12-foot piece of sheetrock. And we could spend a whole bunch of time cutting this sheet to scribe it against the ceiling, or we can just apologize and have the tapers make it go away. So really pay attention to how much work you're gonna have into straightening out old walls. It takes much more time than anybody wants to admit. What do you say, Michael?
yes.
Old walls slow everybody down. So Michael, how many sheets can you hang in an hour by yourself normally if everything is framed good?
If it's all good, it's all straight, and I'm not having to deal with too much waviness, 3 to 4 sheets an hour depending on.
Okay, and that's pretty
tight
good.
Quarters.
I mean, for especially
that's 12 footers.
Yeah, and commercial world, that's pretty fair. Residential world, that's about average, would you say?
Yeah, probably.
Now doing that many sheets in an hour and still being clean enough that a guy like me wants to tape behind you are two different stories. You can get some guys that might be able to hang twice that much, but their drywall's gonna look like crap.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so, and then you can get Ignacio and Saul.
Yeah.
I think they're just like from Harry Potter realm. They just wave their wand and things just go up fast.
Right.
So if you're used to hanging, say, 3 to 4 sheets an hour by yourself, and you get into a job like this, that could get cut in half because you feel like you're hanging every sheet twice.
Yeah, which this one was like that. It literally cut in half.
Yeah, you would put it up there either with a jack or by hand, and then you sit back and look at it before you start screwing it off. And there's gaps everywhere, so then you have to put it back down, try to scribe things, try to figure out,
figure out what to split, what to adjust.
Yeah, or Michael just slams it there harder and throws more screws in it.
This crank's pretty hard. I'm just trying to re-support the ceiling.
Yeah, picking up the ceiling. Other things to look for is make sure you have plenty of backing when you're doing your drywall.
Always check your corners. Inside corners are the #1 spot that you're missing backing.
This job alone, this tiny little house had 6 spots that we had to add backing to.
Yeah, and that's a professional framing crew that was coming through here.
Yep. It's just you run a wall into an existing wall and you forget to put something behind it to add the new inside corner backing there.
And when you're starting your sheetrock, make sure you're looking for backing. So for example, this wall right here, Michael had to do this wall first. Let me back this out. So Michael had to do this wall first because the backing was only sticking out 1 inch. If he had done this wall first, then this 1/2 inch sheetrock would have covered up half the backing and there would not have been enough room for this drywall to grab it. So this backing came out almost 2 inches.
That was a double stud.
Was a double stud, so there you go. So almost 3 inches. So that's why he hung this one first, got his screws back there, and then put this one up because there's a lot more wood to grab here than there was there. Right? This is another reason why he was so slow. Talking to his girly friend all day.
Man, she's cute. She's cuter than you.
Oh, let's take that. Different sizes of board. We kind of already covered that, didn't we?
Yeah, quick little thing to throw in as far as screws go. 1 box of screws, the big box of screws is going to last for 100 to 120 sheets.
Yeah, if you're screwing up dropping. Well, no, is that true? I mean, yeah.
It's very true. I mean, you get a handful of screws, you drop half of them.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting down and picking them up.
Which most footage guys won't touch.
Nope.
Yeah. Not too many nails get used anymore. Not in the Pacific Northwest. If you're somewhere in the South or Midwest, maybe they use glue and screws, glue and nails still. We just don't, yeah. Just
there's some people that are really fast with it.
Oh yeah, it's what you're trained for. It's what you're used to. It's not. That feels kind of dirty now. That's not really for this one. Clickers. So clickers and deadheads.
Yep.
So when you don't screw in, so here, for example, let's go right. So on these screws, I'm trying to find one the light is going to shine in there. There we go. They are just barely below the board line.
Without breaking the paper.
Yep. So here's a good example of one that was just barely breaking the paper just a little bit. See that paper fuzz on it? Just a little bit too deep.
You can see the cut.
Okay, yeah, the cut paper on it.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are really good screws right there, where they're just barely below it. What we want to avoid is when you miss the stud and you just leave the screw in. Those are called deadheads. That's what these were all right here. All these little holes, those were deadheads. The screws were not doing anything. You don't leave those. You pull those back out. Now, unfortunately, when these are in the middle of the wall, like this one right here, that's a hole in the drywall from an old screw. That you have to fill with mud, and then you have to kind of push that paper back inside. Rub the fuzz back into the back of your knife. Pull from a deadhead of a missed screw.
Found a clicker.
Found a clicker. Yeah, you didn't have to sheetrock in here.
Huh?
You should have stopped the drywall right here. It's a shower.
Clicker.
Oh, okay, perfect. The reason we call it a clicker is because it actually sticks out past the drywall, and when you take your mud knife over it,
It's a nice mud knife.
yeah, it clicks. So that's called a clicker. So when the tools touch it, it goes click. All right, so cost of special materials versus cost of extra labor. We talked about this earlier about using your scrap versus versus throwing your scrap away and just using a full good sheet of sheetrock. That's going to make a lot of you guys cringe, just because you're probably watching this to help you be a DIYer and save money, so you're not hiring a contractor. And the first thing we're telling you to do is stop being stingy and start throwing your scrap away. But also, if you have a house that's got big wide open rooms and you have the ability to get 12-foot sheetrock in those rooms, do it. Don't use 8-footers because they're easier to carry. They're going to cost you more money.
You can. It's just a matter of you're spending more money that way because now it's extra joints you have to tape. It's extra work.
Your quality. You're going to have to work a lot harder to get 8-foot sheetrock to be as nice looking overall as 12-foot sheetrock. Right. You're saving a butt joint for every 2 sheets, or 3 sheets versus 2 sheets.
Yep.
So almost all of our sheetrock we pick up from a sheetrock specialty supply house. We have Knez, Dowig Brothers, GTS, L&W. Is that what they call it now? L&W?
Yep.
What are the other ones that you guys use as well?
For me, it's GTS, Knez, and L&W.
Okay, but there's more. What are the other ones around?
Those
are the ones you can think of?
Those are the only ones I know of because that's all I use.
Okay, so those are our local
You
Pacific
said one that I
Northwest.
don't even know.
Dowig Brothers.
Yeah.
They're a small shop up out of Brooks. They're pretty cool.
I mean, there's a couple more. I can't think of the names of them. I've used them one time.
All of those places are going to have your 4-foot wide, 12-foot long, 4-foot wide, 8-foot long. The bigger places will have some 9-foot long, 10-foot long.
Yeah, the Knez, the GTS, those kind of places. Those regularly carry 8s, 9s, 10s, and 12s.
Yeah. All in 48
and most
inches.
will also carry the 54-inch 12-footers.
The 12-footers, right.
But a lot of that is only in 5/8. Finding a half-inch isn't as commonly stocked in those places because they're servicing commercial more.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can still find your 54-inch 12-footers, your 8-foot 4-footers, and your 4x12 all in half-inch really easily. Finding the 9s and 10s in half-inch is a little bit tougher. It's doable, but it's a little bit tougher. Yep. And like you found out on that one big commercial job, if you order enough of it, they'll make you 9-foot 3. Is that what you guys ordered?
8 foot 3.5.
8 foot 3.5 foot long.
8 foot 3.5 custom cut board, but you had to order like 4 semi trucks.
Yeah, so you're talking $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah, it's
really fast.
More than that.
Was it? Okay.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of sheetrock. So that's for big building, but It's possible no matter what, there's just cut charges, and I believe there's minimums too. So
that would be the force electric minimum.
I don't remember if that was the minimum or if that was the minimum to not get a cut charge.
Oh, gotcha. To specially set up the machines to cut at a certain size.
Yep.
What are some of the other specialty boards? I know like the bender board, the 1/4-inch bender board is freaking amazing versus just even wetting down regular 1/4-inch. Again, specialty supply houses, they'll have the 3/8, they'll have 1/4-inch.
Right.
They have exterior rated sheetrock.
I mean, you can get abuse board.
Oh, that's right.
Something that's more durable, can take a little bit more of a beating. If you've got a rough family, abuse board might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know, they have some stuff that is literally as strong as plywood in that regard. It's got the mesh.
Yeah, and it finishes just like regular drywall.
Yep.
It's heavier though, right? A lot heavier?
It is a lot heavier, and it's harder to cut, all of that, you know, but in certain situations, if you're rough on the walls and you got a kid that's punching through walls enough times, maybe it's worth it, you know? The other thing, as far as not using all the pieces, that kind of goes back to bastard joints.
Oh, big railroad joints,
You know?
Where there's just a long butt joint. So make sure you stagger your sheets. Don't
stagger your sheets. Don't use a factory recess against a cut edge.
Yeah.
Just stuff
Maybe
like
we should
that.
I didn't think about the recess edges versus a butt joint. I just, sometimes you just forget that people don't know that stuff.
Let's go this way.
So this is what a recess joint looks like. You guys can see the line right here and this line right here.
Looks like this.
Yep, here's our recessed factory joint, and it's tapered. So it's
you can't see it too well, but
that's a little bit better. So it's thinner on the edge, and it's much more compressed. And it's a lot harder. It just has a taper. So if you put a straight edge across here, you would see a gap. You and I are both looking for a straight edge.
And then the other side is obviously
a
cut edge.
Just a cut edge, yep. So we call...
No factory.
Yeah, so those are what we call a factory seam, factory flat joint, and then this is a butt joint. That's where you take two pieces of sheetrock and you butt them together.
Okay, so demonstration time.
Okay.
Factory to factory, that's what you're looking for.
Factory to factory, yep.
That's nice and clean, gives you a nice spot to tape.
Yeah, so your mud and your paper tape will fill in that void and make it a lot easier to hide the seam.
You don't want that.
Yep, because now we have a flat piece of sheetrock with a recessed piece of sheetrock. At this point, this is not helping us one bit. So you might as well just have two cut edges together, and that's what we call a butt joint. Now, if you're ending your ceilings, one butt joint to the next butt joint, you want to stagger those. We don't have any ceiling seams in.
Only in the...
Okay. You want to stagger your ceiling butt joints.
Right here, though.
At least, but then people are going to see our pre-fill job. So you want, especially on ceilings, you don't want to stagger. You don't want your butt joints to be right next to each other on the same one. You want to stagger them at least 1 or 2.
You want a good 2 feet or more past each other. You don't want them lined up. You want them offset from each other.
And there's a couple reasons for that. What are they?
Strength.
Yeah. You're putting a weak point, and you're spreading that weak point
in the wall.
Yeah, you're putting that weak point of those two coming together. You're staggering it so it's not all on one truss or one joist. It's staggered around, so you have a full seam, a full piece of sheetrock with a seam, then a full piece of sheetrock and then a seam, and it just helps tie the whole house in together.
As far as the staggered joints we were talking about, if you do end up standing up the sheetrock on walls, make sure from one side of the wall to the other that those don't line up, because that's also a hinge point.
Oh, meaning the reverse side of the wall. So if you have a bedroom wall, and then on the other side of the bedroom wall is another bedroom, you don't want the two seams on both sides to be the same stud. Right. That way if someone pushes
if it's stood up is the only time that really matters.
That makes sense though. Yeah, so stagger your seams even on the opposite sides of the walls when you're doing stand-up. That makes good sense. I didn't think about that. Good to know. All right, what else we got? Counting sheetrock. A lot of guys on the internet, they're counting how many boards it is. And I've seen it more with the guys that are talking about it, you know, that are back east or in the south, you know, they will ask a question on the contractor pages on Facebook. It's like, well, how much are you guys getting paid for board? And that's a tough question because here we do it by the square footage of the sheetrock we deliver. We don't, so the walls could be, you know, this wall could be 110 square feet, but if it takes 120 feet of sheetrock, we charge the 120 square feet. Yep. We don't charge for that extra 10 square feet that we're going to end up in a pile over here. Now, again, if the wall is 8 feet, we do. Yes, sorry, my bad. We do charge for all of our scrap. But if the wall is 8 feet tall and 12 feet wide, that's 2 sheets of 12-foot sheetrock, or it's 3 sheets of 8-foot sheetrock. So that's why we still do it by the square footage versus by the board.
Well, and if you're doing it by the board, 8s are going to be worth less than 12s.
Right.
That's kind of what it is.
But people don't say that online when they're asking. But in the Pacific Northwest, it's all about footage, for the most part. I'm sure there's people that do it by the board.
I mean, it's all cost per square foot.
Yeah.
But that per square foot is still
all your scrap,
with the waste, with
all
everything.
Your windows,
Yep. So if you're doing a takeoff of the square footage of walls, you want to make sure you add in that waste factor still. So,
about 10% usually.
Yep.
Yeah.
10 to 15%, depending on if you've got those walls that are 12 foot 2, 12 foot 6, stuff like that, you're going to end up with more waste.
Yeah.
Versus rooms that are 8 to 12 foot, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, and just for simple math, a 4-foot sheet of sheetrock that's 12 feet long is 48 square feet. A 4-foot by 8-foot is 32 square feet. A 54-inch board, so that's 4'6" by 12 foot is 54 square feet. And then so if you're going to have 100 sheets of 8-footers, that's going to be 3,200 square feet. If you're going to have 100 sheets of 54-inch board, that's going to be 5,400 square feet. So there's a big difference from 8-footers and 54-inch board. 32 versus 54.
Right.
So going by the square footage for us makes more sense. But then you get into the whole taper versus hanger. You know, hangers, you touch it once, tapers touch it four times.
Yeah.
You know, and
exactly.
And they're paid the same.
Yeah, hangers can do something in a day. A taper has to come back 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, and it really burns the tapers chaps. And it just rips them.
Yeah. My brother's a taper. I'm a hanger. I know how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yes. And honestly, what it really boils down to is if you don't like it, then be a hanger.
Exactly.
That's it. It's
I mean, what it really boils down to is be a hanger anyways, because taping sucks.
I'm the taper by trade, and he's not wrong. So.
No, what it really boils down to is being an electrician.
Amen on that. That's why both of my boys are being electricians. Yep. Either one of them are hangers or tapers. All right, so again, I think a lot of your professional drywall contractors are going to keep it to square footage numbers. And then I think a lot of the subcontractor, single phase hangers or single phase tapers, I think for simplicity, that's why you get a lot of how many boards is it versus how many board feet. I could be wrong. I'm sure if I'm wrong, the guys in the comments are going to let me know.
I think it more boils down to how your brain works. I mean, what type of counting makes more sense to you?
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. Okay, I think that's pretty much the list.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you can think of you want to add? I told you this wouldn't be too bad. Let's see, Michael. Yeah, this is going to be a long video. I wonder if anybody's going to watch it. I doubt it. It's too long. I'll have to edit it out.
You got a catchphrase? We got to end with a catchphrase?
I don't think we have a catchphrase.
Why not?
I don't have a
You've been doing all these videos and you don't have a catchphrase?
No, I don't have a catchphrase.
God, no wonder you don't have a lot of viewers.
I don't. He's right. He's right. At least your mom watches me.
Does she?
No.
Oh.
I don't know. She might. But his mom's really cool. I'm just teasing. All right. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Till next time. See ya. Bye.